Tony, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Good to be here, Tim.
Yeah. So you're the CEO of a company called Sonnant.
Yes.
Really powerful in the artificial intelligence but transcribing area. Want to start this podcast off with an impact question, and we'll get into what the tool is and what it is, but what is the most powerful area that you've seen that Sonnant is doing that you're really, really pumped about?
So, discovery and promotion is the area where Sonnant's really coming into its own for digital content. One of the areas where it's been most powerful is we've had an organisation that's gone into content creation, and what it's been able to do is to be able to take that content and find audience that's really targeted to that content, that's looking for topics and relevance from that content and engage with that audience. So the ability to unpack everything from within an audio file, what's in there, what topics, what subjects, and then reach an audience that is interested in those topics, those subjects, provides this contextual relevance. And what that's done through promotion is it's driven traffic to that company. So that is the most powerful part of Sonnant to date, and it proves that the AI engine works.
Yeah, so getting more out of your content.
Absolutely.
Using it to its powerful degree, which is exciting.
Yeah.
So let's backtrack and talk about what is it, what is Sonnant, what does it do, and yeah, what the little bit of just the detail of it.
So the whole idea with Sonnant is that you've got an audio file which traditionally has locked up a whole range of metadata, a whole range of heuristics that's stuck in this file on a hard drive somewhere. What Sonnant said is there's a lot of value in that. Let's unpack it all. So the first thing you do is you turn the voice into text and you turn it into a transcript. If you've got video, you overlay the captions. And there's a number of reasons for that. For people from the deaf and hard of hearing community, it makes the content accessible. For Google, it makes it crawlable. So all of a sudden you've got this level of discovery that you hadn't had previously. It was locked up. If I was talking about, Ferrari Testarossa, Google doesn't know that it's happening. But if you transcribe it, caption it, all of a sudden it becomes discoverable. The next thing is you've got this contextualisation of topics and subjects. So now we know it's a Ferrari Testarossa. We're talking about cars. We might be talking about sports cars, might be Italian cars, might be racing. There's a whole range of topics that are within this particular discussion that once we know what they are, and this is what Sonnant does using artificial intelligence, is it starts to be able to say, oh, these are the topics, these are the subjects, and you can promote that to people who are interested in it. The next level of it is saying, okay, well, we know that there's some topics and subjects in there. Were they talking about these things favourably? So we can look at the sentiment. Then we can do a range of workflow tools that says, I want a summary of what was being talked about so I can promote it on Twitter or LinkedIn. And so there's about 42 different ways you can start to, we've identified today, you can start to slice and dice this file and get it to a bigger audience and more targeted audience.
What I'm interested there is Google crawling, and voice is coming. Voices is the next thing that people are going to be searching. Hey Google, find me this. And sorry if you're listening in the car and I've just put your Google off, but it's coming and we know that. I'm talking to an SEO guy on Tuesday about this, and I'm about to create a video for my website. I didn't even think about subtitling that, because I thought, they're on the website, they're going to click on it, they're going to hear the sound anyway.
Yes.
But correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd be losing some SEO points if I didn't subtitle that.
100%. So think of video and audio like the new blog post. Instead of typing it in, Sonnant listens to it, does all that typing for you, and then looks at the SEO possibilities, your top line metadata tags, all the different hashtags or all the different tags that might be within that. And we're automating this whole SEO formatting. So you go, I upload my audio file, everything's done for me, I embed it into my website, it's immediately crawled and crawlable by Google. So not just the power of unlocking all the SEO, but the automation so that you don't have to learn anything new. You just embed it and that becomes part of your SEO package.
Something I'm strong with telling people in the video marketing space or the marketing content marketing space is picking a format that works for you. For me, I love video. I love talking to you right now through video. Yes, I'm also doing this in an audio format and someone's maybe in the car, but you're going to see the video of this. And that's what I'm comfortable with. I shot a number of videos coming here, like of me putting gear in the car, me setting up, but that's what I do. Someone else is more comfortable with writing blogs and they love that. But I'm never going to actually sit down and write a blog.
Yep.
Because my English is terrible. My partner's a school teacher. She looks at what I've written and goes, "How did you pass English?" So what can Sonnant do in that instance for me who sucks at writing?
So again, taking what is a conversation and turning that into something that's relatively grammatically accurate, and giving you the transcript and maybe creating snippets from within that. So again, you don't have to write anything down. You might say, "Oh, that was a really interesting topic. Find me where we were talking about," again, if I use the Ferrari example, the Testarossa, and go, "I'm only interested in this 2-minute segment," and then Sonnant turns that into a written blog. So you've got the blog there all ready to go. It's as much a copy and paste, maybe check for all the words have come across through the AI accurately, because sometimes it can be hit and miss, and just turn that straight into a blog. So you don't have to worry about writing it. You've already done it through conversation.
So it can write the blog for me?
Yes.
With obviously, I go back and I check and I might change some things, because we talk a little bit different than we write. When I say goodbye to you, I'm not going to say with kind regards.
Yes, yeah. And you may not write that for a blog either.
Yeah.
So again, if you're looking for the power of the blog is to engage the audience, then it's sort of our contention that the audience is interested in really only two things when it comes to content. They're interested in the talent, and so you've got your own followers. They're interested in Tim and your podcast, or you've got the topic. They might come to you because you've got a topic that is really interesting to them. But if you haven't blogged it, if you haven't written it down, if you haven't put it into SEO, then they can't discover it in the first place. And so that's the thing that Sonnant's solving for people is, okay, we know there's talent out there. I'm going to follow Hamish and Andy or Tim Beanland or whoever, but I don't know what they're talking about. And that's what we really want to connect with people, this contextual relevance.
Definitely. So I want to get a little bit of your background as well, where you've come from. You're also a fellow podcaster too. But yeah, what's been the journey for you? I mean, you can start from uni days, or
I started as a lawyer, so did practice law for about 8 years, and during the dot-com boom of the early 2000s, went from one of the big battery hen house law firms in-house to a company that was bought by British Telecom. So I ended up being an in-house lawyer for British Telecom in London, then came back to Australia, did that for about 6 months in Telstra, and 5 days before my 30th birthday thought, if this is what my future looks like, I've got a problem. So I just quit. I started a company that became a software company, focused on telecommunications. It was a big data company. Did that for 10 years. That exited and was on the ASX, on the stock market. And then I started something called Marketplace Ventures, which was focused on more startups and incubating startups. And Sonnant's just probably about the fifth or sixth company to come through that. Now I've moved permanently to focus all my energies on Sonnant. But I suppose the last 20 years have been sort of digital software and artificial intelligence companies.
Yeah, wow. So if you were to go back 10 years and give yourself some advice about running businesses, you would have picked up some really cool stuff listing on the market, like that's big level business. Yeah, what would you tell yourself at that 30-year-old part?
Well, people are obviously the key to business. So probably managing people better. So the skills around management and leadership have probably taken me, a good decade to really not master but get better at. And I suppose the thing that I've learned is that a lot of my time these days is not actually working on the tools, but leading people. And so probably I'd go back and say less time on the tools, more time in the leadership role.
Yeah, it's one of the things. Last year was hard for everyone, but for me, I started my first business last year, first year, and
into the teeth of a global pandemic. Yeah. Nice effort, Tim.
Thank you. But I struggled because I failed to build out systems, processes, and other people in the business as well. I was on the tools and doing everything myself. So that lesson there, where you're saying get off the tools and get people that can be around you, because there's this solopreneur thing that people talk about, and really no successful business is built by one person. Would you agree?
I'd agree. And for those who sort of are experiencing the things you experienced last year, I think one of the seminal books in the space is Michael Gerber's The E-Myth Revisited, which talks very much about systemizing and processing, or creating processes so you can actually step out off the tools, let others step in, and you can focus on the strategy that grows the business. So,
it's cool. My uncle, Martin, he is a mortgage broker from an army background, and he's sent me that book. I know he'll be listening to this podcast, and we've had strong conversations about systems and processes and building redundancy, but he's, give me that book as well. Give me that book. And that was a long time ago. I don't know if you remember sending it to me, but it's interesting having conversation with me last week, and then you bring that book up.
Might be time to have a read of it. It's a very, very useful book to sort of maybe not help you actually create the processes themselves, but to give you that thought process about, how do I actually grow a business? Yeah. So that if an alien came into my business tomorrow and I had to get them to do something, I had a process that they could follow that meant they could start doing it straight away. And I've tried to get better at that as well.
And does that help you? Does that help you then train people and effectively get someone from, I know they've got talent, I know they've sort of hired them for a reason, but get them through that first 2-3 week stage and how to hire someone? If you've got the process? I
don't know if it helps you hire any better or worse, but it's certainly, if it's a process-driven role, it doesn't necessarily help you hire better, but it helps them get to work more effectively. It helps them start more effectively, helps give them a roadmap of what they're following. And more importantly, if you're trying to grow a business and you're the sort of founder and the CEO and the marketer and doing all these things, it doesn't take away 100% of your time where you constantly have to train. Yes, you want to invest in that person as much as possible, but you also want to cut the cord so they can be empowered to start growing their own responsibilities within a company. And if you've got a process that they can follow, get their teeth into and evolve, then that's a much better start than sitting with them going, well, this is what you do here, and if that happens, and they're constantly saying, I've done this, what do I do next? So it's really also about freeing up the CEO to help spend time on that person's skill set and turning them into a better person, which I've sort of realised is more important than turning them into a better worker. If you help give them the tools to turn into a better person, they become a better employee and worker by virtue of that.
Yeah, awesome. So I want to get back to Sonnant. You guys are in a beta phase now. You've gone through big changes. It has been around for how long? Have you really been back when it was the green?
Probably
branding?
about 2 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about the beta and where you're at the moment, and also how I'm using it. So for me, it's about getting at a base level. I will start doing the blogs and what we talked about before, but right now I've got a 2-minute clip from the podcast that I want to put on social media. I understand the power of subtitles and the need for subtitles. So I put the file in, and then it does subtitles for me. Automatically.
Yep.
So that's how I'm using it.
Yep.
And honestly, to people listening along, that's really cool. So within that and the podcasting space, because I know that's an area you're going into, just expand in terms of your thinking that's a little bit further than just my base thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
So first of all, we have these experiments that we've done covering those 42 different areas, and podcasting is really central to that. The other thing that happened is Southern Cross Oz Stereo, who had the Podcast One suite of podcasts, invested in Sonnant because they saw the potential that these tools can help with their own content discovery and content promotional activities. So, one of the things that we've talked about is imagine that you listen to a podcast or a suite of podcasts, and imagine you follow a football team. So, say Collingwood Football Club. Every time someone talks about Collingwood Football Club, the system goes, oh, that's Collingwood Football Club, creates a little snippet and emails it to you, or gives you a notification that topic's come up. So you may not be interested so much in the whole show. You might only be interested in this particular piece of content. So that's one way of connecting with an audience more effectively and taking content and using it really well. Another way is looking at all your archive of content and making sure that has long-term value. Because a lot of the stuff that podcasters do isn't about today's news. It's about stuff that is relevant for a long period of time. So if I've got some stuff that I've talked about and something relevant comes up, so, a couple of days ago, Prince Philip passed away. If I'd have talked to someone about Prince Philip, it's a great opportunity to reach back into that, pull it out and say, oh, look, I talked about, or with Prince Philip, or, a royal writer about Prince Philip 3 years ago. If you want to listen to this piece, here it is. And your promotional stuff's written, the text is already there. You've got a really easy way to promote it on the different digital channels to your audience. And we're calling that archival revival. So there's a whole range of different promotional tools that you can use.
Well, the other thing that's cool about that is I remember when I go back and edit the clips that I want. Like I will watch the whole thing to actually find them, but I want to get that clip about processing out as soon as possible. I can upload this file once I've edited and put the pieces together, but I could upload just the audio file and then type systems and processes. Now I'll have the time code.
Yes.
To where that is, right?
Yep. So you've got a whole range of really, specific production tools that you'd expect from any kind of editing suite to be able to go, oh, here's a nice little piece of content. I want to create a snippet and publish that out. But now you've got these search tools as well. So I want to find the moment where Tim talked about, NASA. All I'd have to do is type in NASA, and I've got all the instances where NASA was talked about within however long the clip is. So you've got these time-saving tools, and you go, well, I want to now do a little promotional piece around NASA, clip it, promote it, got my captions, got my transcript. But in 3 years' time, if there's something that happens around NASA, you've got this automation to go, hey, NASA's really trending again today. You talked about NASA 3 years ago. Here's that piece that you can promote, drag audience back in and to that piece of content, which previously was just locked away. Once it was on the shelf, it was done. Now, again, this archival revival, you've got another way to continue to get value from this content that you created historically.
Well, repurpose, and if you have a bank of all your content, you can just find that really quickly.
So quickly.
So one of the things that I've done, a client that I've been working with, he does a lot of keynote speaking. We've put up videos of his keynotes that he did, 2 years ago, We put them out last year, they did okay. But we put them out again, we've recycled it, and he's got more engagement than he's ever got on videos. He's got messages when they're just starting to do Keynote again. And that's from the archival revival that we're talking about. We've gone back and realised, people are starting to do networking again.
Yep.
So let's put that video
Yeah, right.
out.
Yeah.
So I think it's a thing. I think it's a thing that people forget when it comes to content is you can put something out 12 months ago, but then also put it out again.
Yeah.
And this is another way to...
And it's been traditionally really difficult to put it out again because, if you've got a whole lot of content, you do tend to forget everything. And if you write liner notes or production notes for a show, you don't take out every keyword, every topic, every subject. And your way of classifying that might be different to someone else's way of classifying it. I mean, if you talk about accounting, someone might classify that as business or financial accounting or profit and loss. There's a whole different way of classifying it. And by using Sonnant, the artificial intelligence engine is probably... Well, it doesn't take a break. It looks at things dispassionately and it goes, this is business, this is accounting, this is financial accounting, this is management accounting, and does all that classification for you. So nothing gets overlooked in that process. There's no need to sort of fit it down into one sentence to summarise. You can have every aspect of it that then is searchable.
One of the things on the website is talking about growing in the podcast space. I run a group called How to Start a Podcast where I help people start podcasts. So for someone that's wanting to start a podcast and then looking at the growth aspect, how can what you do help them do that? Because it's something on the page. So you also hosting shows on Sonnant platform. Yeah, tell me a bit about that.
So the grow really comes from audience acquisition. How do you get people from the internet, the whole wide world, to my podcast? And a lot of people start on a fairly shoestring budget, so you don't want to spend a lot of money going out and acquiring people. How do you do it? So come back to what I'd said earlier, that people are going to follow you because talent or topic. So if you're starting a podcast and you don't have any sort of name or brand or goodwill, put the talent to the side. You say, okay, I may have talent, but people don't know about it yet. You've got to go into the topics. You've got to go into what you're talking about, and you've got to find people who are interested in that and hook your podcast into people who are interested in that. So if we've got a business podcast, business is pretty broad. If we're talking about financial accounting, okay, where do financial accounting people hang out? At the big four accounting houses, on LinkedIn, they're using different hashtags on Twitter. All of a sudden you've got this topic understanding of what you're talking about, and you seek this, what we're calling contextualised relevance, of targeting people who are interested in that topic. So by using Sonnant to break that all down, it becomes much easier to grab that piece of information and say, hey, financial accountants, here's something you might be interested in.
That's awesome. I think it is about niching it down. This is the first interview episode of my new podcast, or title of the podcast, to the Expert Secret, or the Expert Secrets. So I've very consciously decided during this interview to ask you questions from the start that were more practical. What is it that you're doing, rather than a little bit of the get to know you stuff.
I like being a guinea pig.
So yeah, you're the first, which is really cool, and it's great that you said that about niching down, about being more specific, putting the talent aside and actually asking the right questions, because that's how you get a good show. That's why people listen, because they come to either solve a particular problem or be entertained.
Yep.
So,
and the next element of that is, helping improve the sort of dialogue in a podcast. If we know that people switch off when they hear Donald Trump or COVID-19, if those words get picked up in a podcast, you go, actually, maybe I'll edit that out, because we don't call them attractors, we call them detractors. So we want to get rid of things where energy levels fall off, so we track the energy in the way people speak, positivity, whether they talk positively or negatively about certain topics. And over time, using Sonnant, the machine learning capabilities, you can always get a sense of whether a podcast episode is going to be successful, because it has the right elements in it, and it's dispensed with those elements that audiences will switch off at.
Yeah, spot on. If you don't have a fun voice, if you're just monotone through the whole thing, it's not a good experience.
No.
So, but you can improve that. So someone who's not aware of that.
Absolutely. How do you know until someone tells you? And if your audience numbers aren't growing, there could be a number of different reasons. But if a system is able to say, you know what, we think your energy level dropped off, you didn't have that punchiness, there's something you can work on to improve your intensity, your delivery. That's a perfect tool to make sure that, well, at least if an audience member starts, I'm going to try my best to keep them engaged for the whole episode.
And that helps in, like, not just traditional education, but the education online course person as well. Sorry.
Good time for water.
Yeah, we'll have a bit of a pause. I've got this asthma back, and it's not.
I hope it's not me.
No, it's not you. I've had it for it's not you. What were we talking about? The education online. So that helps the educator, because he might have a boring course, and his students aren't interacting because he's being monotone. Like, he can pick that up.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of studies done around delivery and content, and whether if you deliver really boring content in a very exciting manner, does that have more engagement than really exciting content delivered in a boring manner? And the answer is, boring content delivered exceptionally well will engage much more highly than really interesting content that's delivered in a monotone. So again, if you've got some indicators within the system that says your energy's dropped off, your delivery's dropped off, or at this point you were talking too quickly, or at this point you were talking too slow, all of these indicators where the human brain is hardwired to go, I'll go find something different to do. You don't want that. You've got so much effort in creating a piece of content. You want every piece of content to be as best as it can. That's what we're aiming to do with people.
Awesome. So you mentioned Austereo at the start. We've talked a little bit about podcasting. So those are a couple of industries. But I've also seen in your website you're working with Swinburne. You're working with Vision Australia. Is it Vision Australia? Sorry.
Expression Australia.
Expression Australia. Sorry, Expression Australia. That's my bad. So those industries, what are the powerful things you're seeing in those sectors?
So within the education vertical, you've got this ability for a multi-dimensional way to engage with content. So, the lecturer might be, as you say, a little bit dry or boring, or there might be some areas within the lecture that you're specifically struggling with.
I've fallen asleep to some really bad accounting lecturers.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I had some great lecturers in the marketing department, which was where my degree was, but accounting, I fell asleep.
I fell asleep during some Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals, so anything's possible. Just that ability to find what you need quickly. So if you don't want to watch an hour video and you can read the transcript, fantastic. If that's how you learn better, if you don't want to look at all the intro but you want to get into a specific subject, you can just search for that subject and find that part of the lecture much more easily. If you want the notes to be able to revise, you can download the transcript and just have the notes. So from an education point of view, where you've got a raft of content over a semester, your ability to drill into it, dissect it in multiple different ways, in a way that suits your learning style, is very powerful. From the Expression Australia side, the hearing and impaired side of things, accessibility is key. So, a podcast is very difficult for people with hearing loss and deafness. Giving them the transcript or the captions over a video where they can read is incredibly important to make sure that every person has the same level of access to every piece of content. And whilst it's not legislated now across the board, hopefully in time there will be more and more requirements on broadcasters to make sure that content is accessible for everybody. And we're working with Expression Australia to make sure that that content can get across to people really rapidly, again in a format that they can digest.
I'd like to get an example of Expression Australia, but I want to go back to one I've been told by the lecturer at Swinburne when you were testing this, and they were monotone through their lecture, and they could notice that students weren't showing up. And you guys told him about that because he didn't know. You told him, and then he changed. He was a little bit more exciting, and that improved student show-up rate. That was an example. Could you tell me about that one?
So there was an example where there was a course delivered by multiple lecturers, and the course materials were effectively the same. What we found was the engaging delivery, the more exciting sort of lecturer had many more people turn up to that lecture, even though the students weren't necessarily assigned to that class. So the content's the same. It's the method of delivery which people, are very much attuned to. And if you're punchy and, got a good energy level and engaging, people want to listen to that. And so it was really important to be able to demonstrate, hey, look, this person's kind of wasting their time because people aren't engaging with it. And the whole idea for delivering content at university level is to educate. So people need to engage with this. And if we can help the lecturer understand that they've got some areas to improve on, some of them aren't going to be that receptive. Some of them are going to be, in fact, pretty unhappy with that feedback. But ultimately, you're there for the students' well-being and edification. So that feedback is very useful.
And then with Expression Australia, what are some cool examples that you've seen that have gone, this is why I'm here?
So social media until recently didn't have a lot of captioning. So, people upload even TikTok videos these days where captioning's not necessarily a standard feature. So for those people to engage with, the wider world, the relevant world, the trending world, those people with deafness and hearing impairment, the ability to give them access to that content that they were otherwise sidelined from, that for a lot of young people especially, is really empowering and really important. And then you've got things like last year with COVID, a lot of the messaging that was happening. During your standard broadcast time frame, there is a requirement to caption content. But if that messaging came out from the government, it was late at night, or there was something on Sky News or one of the other news bulletins that wasn't necessarily captured by this legislative framework, there's content that slips through the net, and it may have important messaging for COVID safety. And so being able to grab this information off one of the other platforms, news channels, caption it, transcribe it, give it to people who might otherwise again miss this messaging is a really important avenue for disseminating information.
Yeah, it's powerful to give that person the sense of community, give that person the sense of being informed. You just don't think about it if you're not in that space.
And podcasting, right?
Yeah.
So, it's all audio, oral format. Unless you've got the captions, unless you've got the transcript, people who are deaf just can't get any content that way. And there's so much great content. We just want a level playing field for everyone.
Definitely. I think that's an awesome spot to leave it. But I've got two more questions.
Yeah, please.
One is, so you're currently in a beta phase at the moment. Obviously, when you're in beta, getting as many people using it and feedback and that sort of thing is possible. Are you looking for more people to join that? If so, how do people do it? Or where are you at the moment?
Yeah, look, we're happy for as many people to come and join it. Use the engine, transcribe for free as much as you want. Helps train our machine, and the feedback helps our machine get better at understanding what people want. So Sonnant.com, you'll see the big sign up button. Please come along and join.
I'll leave a description in the notes for that. And yeah, look, I did mention we didn't talk much about your podcast. Let's do a quick plug for that, and then how do people connect with that and connect with you as well?
Well, I've got a business and entrepreneurs podcast called Discipline, which is spelt like discipline, but take the E and replace it with an N, so n.com.
Yeah.
And that's something that's going on, sponsored by now Edison Partners. So we're really trying to look for entrepreneurs to tell their story and understand how they get to this level of success, their motivations, how they broke through. And so it's really about telling the story about the individual more than, sold a company, well done. And the other one we're launching is a Sonnant podcast, which is really focused on artificial intelligence and machine learning. Look out for that. It's called Apply AI.
Awesome. When that comes out, and if you're listening to that in this episode in a couple months' time, that'll also be in the link. But Tony, thank you for coming on the show. And I've been Tim, you've been Tony, and cheers for being the expert.
Thanks for having me, Tim. Been excellent.